We're late. Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and I'm so excited today. My sister of the microphone, Jackie Reed, is joining us. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Sybil Wilkes, it's so good to see your face and glad to be here.
I am so glad you're here. And you and Coy have met before. You were on with us a while ago talking
Yeah.
about veganism and making food choices as we were starting out a new year. Welcome back, Coy. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Hey, Sybil. Hey, Jackie. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
So, Coy, you and Jackie are both in the same town, and I guess the weather has just been a little crazy for you, huh?
Oh, it's
Yes,
been
it has.
first, it's been extremely hot as it is everywhere because global warming is real.
Yeah.
And then the storms seem to be so much more extreme. I mean, we were out
Right.
at Chastain Park the other night with my mom celebrating her birthday, seeing Ozzy Brothers and Franklin Beverly and Mays. And the minute we got in the car, not only did the skies open up, but the lightning and the thunder. I mean, it was such an extreme storm with the
Wow.
winds and everything. It was just powerful. It's been crazy.
It's been a lot of that in areas kind of dancing around the Dallas Fort Worth area. We've had some storms early in the year, but not of late. And even in Chicago, they had like one night a couple of weeks ago. They had a record 8 or 9 tornadoes in one night.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. It's just, and we could really, I sound like my grandmother. We could really use the rain here in Dallas, but
We
today it was 105 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, the extreme storms, the extreme, don't get me started with my environmentalism, but, we've got to do better. And so many people feel like, environmentalism is so much about tree huggers and all those things. But this extreme weather that we see, when it happens, who's hurt the most? People in urban areas, low income
Exactly.
areas. And so we do have to pay attention to what's going on with the weather. But I know that's a topic for another day.
And it is going to be a topic for tomorrow because in our newsletter tomorrow, our contributor Cameron Riley is talking about how the climate change and the adverse weather is really affecting people of color and affecting our folks in poorer neighborhoods. So
Yeah.
check us out for that as we talk about it. I'm really glad you guys are here. Sorry that Chris and Huggy are unavailable to join us, but it would have been a really great homecoming of sorts. But I'm really glad that you're here, Jackie, because I do want to talk about, and we will in our next segment, we'll talk about the story that I did for today regarding Carly Russell. And I was struck by your post, and I do want to talk about that. But let's start with the What You Need to Know newsletter. And Coy, we'll start with your story. Coy is our social justice contributor and joins us several times a week in the newsletter. If you'd like to subscribe, and we'd love to have you do so, please go to sybilwilkes.com. It is free. We will have it in your email box every Monday through Friday. If you go to sybilwilkes.com, give us your name and your email address, and we'll have it in there. And when you do receive it, all we ask is that you open it. That goes a long way. And so thank you, and please and thank you, I should say. Coy, let's talk about the story that really hit us in a number of different panic-stricken ways. And I say that as for myself, when I first saw the story, this is about a young black truck driver talking to his mama on the phone, going through Ohio, stopped by police, and then all hell seemed to break loose,
Oh,
including police not following directions.
right. This story has many layers to it. We're talking about Jadarius Rose, who's a 23-year-old truck driver from Memphis, Tennessee, and he was pulled over on a central Ohio highway on the 4th of July. And according to an incident report, Ohio State Police attempted to pull Rose over for a missing mud flap on his trailer. So while he was on the phone with his mom, he noticed state troopers in his side mirrors and he saw that they were trying to pull him over. So he asked his mom, "What should I do?" And she told him, "Well, you didn't do anything wrong. So just, pull over." So when he did, he noticed again in his mirrors that the officers had all their guns drawn, including an AR-15. So instead of waiting to see what was going to happen, he drove off and he called 911 thinking, you know, I need some kind of help. Let me find out what's
I
going
need some
on.
backup. Yeah.
Right. So eventually, what happened was police put out spike strips to blow out his tires. According to the reports, he went across 3 counties. And
Oh,
he
dang.
was still fearing that, the state troopers at many times he thought they were going to run him off the road. So finally, when he exited the truck, they still had guns pointed at him. And he said he just started walking towards the officer that was giving him directions. So this is when he saw Officer Ryan Speakman and his canine racing towards him across the grass median. So at this point, this is when he started putting his hands up. He got on his knees, and the state trooper, for whatever reason, allowed for the dog to attack him. I don't know if there's been footage released as of yet, with the officer in particular telling this dog to attack. However, on the body camera footage that has been released, you can hear another officer saying, "Do not release the dog with his hands up." He told him that several times, and the officer did this anyway. So while this young man is getting attacked, bitten by the dog, the only thing that stopped the dog was him pleading with the dog, telling the dog to stop.
Mm. Mm.
So he was still arrested on charges of failure to comply, which is a 4th-degree felony. And he is still facing those charges right now. He's currently represented by civil rights attorney Ben Crump. The officer was terminated after an investigation by the Circleville Police Use of Force Review Board. And there's also been a grievance filed on behalf of this officer alleging that he was terminated without just cause.
And that was by the police union, right?
Yes.
Oh, the
Yeah.
good old police union.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. And the opening for this was Coy, the truck driver, the young truck driver, Javarius, saying that I didn't want to die. That's how
Right.
drastic this was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because we see things like this have been happening in our country for centuries. So one of the things that I brought to our attention is, slavery, post-civil rights era, and 2023 all look the same to me.
Mm.
It's a sad memory when you think about the dogs and how they were used by Bull Connor and others, with the dogs and the water cannons and what have you against black people, that were marching, and here this young man wasn't moving at all, just doing as he was told, and the policeman obviously was not. Do you have any sense, Coy, of how this is going to all play out? I know that he was fired, but is there going to be any? Do they give you, not give you, but did they indicate how long they believe this will take to bring some justice to this young man and his family?
Well, it's a lot of these things. There's always going to be an investigation. It's always going to take time. There's always going to be a
What's
review.
to investigate?
I know, right? I mean, it's all there on camera. We saw obviously how this young man was attacked and how this officer's co-worker, cohorts advised him on what not to do, and he did it anyway.
Right.
There was swift justice in terms of this officer being fired. However, how long is it going to take for a lawsuit to happen? Now we see that this other officer is filing a grievance. So that means there's going to be a counter lawsuit. Things like this aren't regulated. So, and then we're talking about the state of Ohio that's already pretty effed up when it comes to justice and justice with black people.
Well, yeah, pick a state and just put it in there, place it in that.
And how long will it take this officer who was terminated to be hired by another police department?
That was my next question, because that's
which is
right,
the biggest thing, one of the biggest thing that needs to change.
That's the thing, because there is no type of system that bars officers from going to work at another police force after they've gotten fired from one for excessive use of force, for violence, for murdering people unjustly. There is no say, how long is he could probably go get a job tomorrow.
And one of the things in the George Floyd Policing Act was that they would not be able to go to a town over or a state over and get another job, that there would be some follow through and follow up on why you were fired here, and you can't just leave that blank when you go to apply to another police department. And unfortunately, as you say, it's all too easy for them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you kept them from easily being hired somewhere else and you went after their pension, right? Then I think that they would at least there would be some accountability for what they do when they use excessive force in these situations.
And Jackie, when you hit to the bottom line of where their hearts are, and that's their money, and
Yep.
how they're going to survive however many years afterwards, and without a pension, that's going to it would behoove them to say, whoa, let me rethink this before I go and beat the living daylights or allow my dog to bite the living daylights out of this man.
Yeah. And they always want to say when it comes to police that, it's just a few bad apples where, well, the good apples need to take a stand against the bad apples.
Right.
And really all these things that people are fighting for changes within these police departments, the good apples need to really take a stand.
It seems that only where the good apples are taking a stand, Jack, here on the TV shows. Otherwise, the bad apples are able to run rampant in real life, and that's why we keep Coy so busy, because every couple of days there's another story for her to do about
Yeah.
people such as this young man. Now she's got another one in Los Angeles County that's coming up, Coy, talking about the way they're treating a black woman with a baby.
In the same city, we just talked about Palmdale, California
Right.
last week. We had a guest on the show that recorded an eyewitness video, and here we are talking about another black woman in Palmdale, California, being assaulted by an officer again.
Jackie, this was the case where the couple was accused of stealing out of a grocery store,
Mhm.
and the woman was taping her husband, who was being arrested by police because he had been accused of stealing
I
by the store.
saw that. Yes.
So
That video.
Coy's godmother was the one that recorded the video,
Oh my goodness.
and she was on with us last week talking about it, and it was horrific, and the history that they have with the Department of Justice for their actions against people are just it is unconscionable.
And not only that, Department of Justice and that local police station that has had these issues with black people, that area has been historically tied to like the KKK and the KKK like group for a long time. And it's not being publicized until now that we're starting to see this pattern with police. People are starting to dig into the history of this area to find out that, yeah, there's a lot of racism going on in California too.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah.
One of the one of the liberal states in the country, and yet this continues to be fostered in the state of California. Um, Well, keep on it, Coy. I know I say this every week because I know there will be some follow up on this, but it is just this is not the way I want you to have to deal with your days every day in following these social justice stories, but because I think it really does something to the psyche.
And
Um,
I appreciate you for sending me some of the positive
I
story
know, I was like, this is
references.
a good one. This is.
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I can only watch news in the morning.
Mm,
And I certain shows in the evening, but I can't, really follow it the way that I used to as a journalist
right.
because it is just so depressing and disheartening. I
And
mean,
it
everything you
really
just said
does. I
informed.
mean,
Yeah,
Jackie, it really does do
yeah,
something to your soul.
it does.
It really does. Well,
Yeah.
let me bring something to the attention of people that President Biden has done over the last week or so. He's had two major events last week. One was the designating of the national monument in honor of Emmett Till and his mother, Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley, in three spots. First, the church where Emmett Till's body was held upon his death, and then the courthouse where the white men who killed him were unjustly released and found not guilty. And secondly, at the spot where his body was pulled from the river. And the president signed this proclamation on Tuesday. And one of the great things that was a part of this almost day long event was they showed the movie Till, which I thought was one of the best movies I'd seen last year, produced by Whoopi Goldberg, and had discussions with people about this, because think about this, it's been 65 years, 68 years since Emmett Till was killed, since he was murdered in 1955. He would
Wow.
have been 82 last week, and they chose that day to have the president sign the proclamation, have the discussion about it, and I'm hoping that it's not too late to make some differences, and especially for what President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are trying to do in bringing to the attention of Black folks. And I know it's election time. I get that, but whatever they're doing in order to bring some attention to these events, I'm all for it, because I think that we don't highlight, we give the lowlights all too often, and talk about them. So that was on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, he went to the Harry Truman Library Initiative, and that was to mark the 70. So it's hard to believe that you're marking 75 years since the U.S. Army was I'm sorry, the U.S. military was desegregated, and he gave an impassioned speech talking about, from the beginning of this country's history, how they would fight with the Americans, Black people fighting with Americans against a king, in which they were still treated as half a man, if not less than that, and then going through the history of fighting for in the world wars and things like that. It was pretty brilliant, and talking about how we still have to do better, and not to mention a senator who is from Alabama, a former football coach, who is denying the promotions of history making men in the military to be the heads of the military branches. And he's using the abortion rights that the first Black defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, has given to soldiers in his branch. And so it is it's really difficult, Jackie, to think about how history is almost being repeated in terms of what Tuberville is doing, and the tussle that's going on in the Senate, especially the House, not so much. They're right with Tuberville, but because there is a small majority of Democrats in the House, it the possibilities exist that they can do something to get Tuberville off of this and have a return to um, decency in the military, and what Lloyd Austin is trying to do to help his soldiers to get reproductive rights that they deserve.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's disheartening. We talk about watching all these things play out on the news on a day-to-day basis on so many levels. You watch a newscast from start to finish and it can leave you destroyed. Thank goodness, you offer some uplifting news on a regular basis, Sybil, with what you do. But it's, I feel like we as a people, when you hear all of the stories that we've been talking about, we have to be so much more strategic.
Yeah.
Just about everything we do. We don't have the luxury. If you saw, they cloned Tyrone,
Yeah.
it's a great movie, but it really, the symbolism in it is so spot on.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have time. We don't have the luxury to just kind of enjoy life. We need to be more strategic with not only how we vote, and you all know this, on a national level, but on a local level.
Local.
Yeah. All of it. Like we need to be strategic about where we live. Charles Blow in his most recent book talked about, reversing the Great Migration and moving Black people really moving back to the South, where we really make a difference when it comes to having powerful voting blocks. Here in Atlanta, when you look at places like DeKalb County and Fulton County, which really made the difference, right? The presidential election this time and becoming blue. Let me tell you,
they're doing.
When you drive around Atlanta and Fulton County and DeKalb County, you see areas like when I was growing up here that were all Black, that are now all white, and voting base is going to change, and we don't pay attention. We're too busy doing documentaries about Freaknik to really into what is really happening. And as a people, we have got, listen, we're not a monolithic group, right? We're all very, but we have to be more strategic. We can't wait until a presidential election comes up to all just kind of say, okay, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. It's across all
it's day to day. It's 365 days a year.
Listen, we think like we move like the civil rights movement the civil rights movement is not even in our rearview mirror,
Mm-hmm.
but it is. It's right there, and it's just like it's just discouraging with how we aren't taking this as a people as seriously as we need to. All of these
Absolutely.
signs and things that are happening, we really need to get it together and organize better, as other groups do, particularly the Republican Party. They're very good at organizing, and we are
Even
not.
when they're wrong.
Even when they're wrong. That's when they're the best at it. Their messaging. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like, what are we doing?
And they are very good at ignoring what is before them in order to get to their goal.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it works.
Yep.
It works for them. And Dems need to take a lesson, but Black people need to take a lesson too. And we need to be smarter and more strategic about everything we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I want Black people to look into the neighborhoods of like, look at who's in these neighborhoods, these well-to-do neighborhoods, and look into the history. You're going to start seeing that a lot of them belong to Black people before they were gentrified, before they were white, before they were affluent. For example, here in Atlanta, one of our most prominent neighborhoods, Buckhead, was an entirely Black neighborhood for years until about the 1970s. And they used to have a Black family reunion for Buckhead for Black residents every year until it was gentrified. Now it's so expensive, like you can't even, a lot of people can't even imagine walking through here. Like, no.
Well, it's about to change again, from what I understand, and all my reading about it. So,
No.
this is time for another.
Not if I can help it.
Another day. Well, okay, we'll leave that to you and your social justice actions. Jackie, let's move to what's really going on, and I'll tell people that we did the update on Carly Russell. The case of the kidnapping of Carly Russell seemed to capture the attention and spread like wildfire, especially across social media. There was a great deal of concern about her safety, and there was some doubt. And when she returned, the doubts grew louder, but Carly's lawyer confirmed what many had feared, that the event was a hoax. And some people were quick to say, I knew it, I knew it. I wasn't. And I did make note that you, our friend, a journalist and podcaster, asked that people extend the young woman, 25 years old, some grace. So, Jackie, first of all, thank you for joining us, and let's talk about your post and what drew you to create that, and to really implore people to extend some grace to this young woman.
Well, I'm really passionate about the issue of missing Black people, particularly missing Black women. I've worked with the Black and Missing Foundation for years. I love Natalie and Derrica Wilson and their dedication to really, you don't hear enough about them and the work that they do. But Sybil, when I was on Joyner, I know they've been a guest on your show here. When we were doing the Tom Joyner show, I'd have them on all the time talking about missing Black people. And so I'm passionate about that. So when I heard about Carly, I really leaned into it. And I was struck, first off, when we first heard about this story, about the coverage it was getting. And I was happy that it was getting that coverage. Of course, my heart went out to her and her family, and I was praying for her safe return. But, as journalists, and I posted it. And when she came home, I posted that. And there were people right when she came home, right away, those of us who really lean in and pay attention, right away, it was like, something doesn't seem right here, right? There were people who felt like because something didn't seem right, they took their post down, supporting her, saying, she's missing or she's been found. All those posts of support started coming down, and you started to see the tide turn, and people became very angry towards her. And I feel like for a young woman to do what she did, it suggests, I don't know her, that there's just something else going on there in her life, mental health. I don't know what's going on that led her to do something like that. But I think it's more than her being this malicious person that just wanted to fool the world. I don't think that it was that. It suggests that something is going on with her. And so I feel like social media especially can be a very cruel place. And I think that for me, I just felt for her. I felt like she deserved some grace when I saw all the jokes and the cruelty towards her. I just felt like I thought about what the rest of her life is going to be like. She has lost her job.
Hmm.
And listen, and now she's facing charges, and maybe deservedly so, right? Do
Right.
we have to pile on to that?
Right.
I say pray for her family. This has to be a really challenging time for her from based on her own actions.
Right.
But who are we to judge this woman and beat up on her more than already? And people will say, well, she's hurt, you know, the situation for other people that go missing, particularly Black women. They don't believe us anyway. And that's true. A lot
Hmm.
of times we don't get the coverage that we deserve. So we have to fight harder for that. That doesn't mean that we have to pile on and do what the rest of the world is going to do to this woman. I mean, listen, the damage has been done.
Hmm.
Leave that girl alone. Leave that woman alone. It's enough. It's just the cruelty that people feel that they are entitled to pile on to someone. What else can you do to her?
One post about her does not entitle you to have judgment to the
No,
extent where you just, as you say, pile on and just keep going and going and going without stopping. And
right.
the one thing that I did say, in our newsletter, we tell you what you need to know and often why you need to know. And, I said that she lied and she has to pay the price.
Yeah,
But while her lawyers are doing their due diligence, I hope that there are others who are helping her get her head and her heart right,
right.
because that is what is going to take her on to the next. And she needs the strength of character as well as the family and support that she has from her friends to take her beyond this, because
Hmm.
it doesn't end here. And she may always be known as that girl who lied, that girl
Yes.
who pulled a hoax.
Everywhere she goes. And I mean, she did a terrible thing and she lied, but there was nothing malicious behind it. Yes, there were a lot of taxpayer money, a lot of
Hmm.
emotion about, but we'll be all right. The
Yeah.
emotion that I have poured into and the time and effort that I put into supporting, finding her, by reposting and all this, I'll be all right. And y'all
Yeah.
will be all right too. Leave her alone. Sure, she should face those charges. I absolutely agree with that. She should work to paying the money back that was
Hmm.
spent on trying to find her. I think that she should do that, but I think she deserves the opportunity to make it right.
The
Right.
vehemence of the Alabama authorities, however, really concerns me. When you're bringing in the state attorney general to look into this and say there's got to be more than two misdemeanor charges, and talking to the state legislature, if you got any more laws that are coming up on the books that we could apply to this, let us know, let us work. And it's almost as if we will not be embarrassed by this little Black girl. And and it may be some guilt on their part because they did not do everything that they said they were doing. And so now they're going to flip it and try to show, well, the people that they took off and all the money that was spent. And like you say, no,
No,
no.
all that energy that they're spending right now could go into finding other Black
How
people
many
that are
others?
actually missing.
Yep.
All that energy, all the anger that people have towards her, put that into families of people that are actually missing. Put that energy there instead of posting something nasty, about Carly, put that energy into posting something about someone who is missing. I
Right.
mean, they just have a lot of nerve, pulling the attorney general into this and all of that when they don't put that same half of that, a fraction of that effort into trying to find somebody. And if it had not been for the star power that was
Right.
ignited behind Carly, we would have never even heard about this story in the way that
Right.
we did.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
and listen, that could be your sister,
Yep.
right? Your sorority sister, your friend, your cousin. It could be someone that you know, and you would want that person shown some grace.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
just, it's just not right. Leave her.
It's just the right thing to do.
Yes,
Because we've all fallen, and we
come on.
luckily we've had people who have lifted us up and say, we got you. Let's keep moving.
Right? It's like they won't be happy until she harms herself any further than she already has. Why don't
Hmm.
drive people to the extreme. Leave her alone. It is bullying and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah. All of the, the little comics and videos and stuff that you see online,
Yeah,
that doesn't do anything for us. It may, make you laugh, but to what extent and to what purpose?
right,
What's your purpose? Just let's see.
right.
Charlotte Bowen Bellamy on Facebook says, "Grace, prayers are needed for her and her family. No throwing stones are needed." Absolutely, Charlotte. You're absolutely, I agree with you, and I'm sure Jackie does too. Brenda McCutcheon, Brenda McCutcheon on Facebook says it's typical in America when a black person does something wrong, they will use it as an example. If they're white, let's move on. Yep.
Yeah.
That part. Yep. Every time.
How many
Every time.
times have we seen white women headlines, right, for lying about something, to, on a blaming it on a black man, or how many times? I mean, Emmett Till. We were
Yeah.
just talking about Emmett Till.
Yeah.
Like, he died because a white woman lied. I mean, it's been happening forever. And this one, so listen, she did it. She made a mistake, but why would we have a hand in burying this woman? Why
Right.
would we have a hand in taking this woman any further down? And it's black people that I'm talking to particularly, that needs to show this woman some grace, because she
Right.
is black.
Yolanda Bowens on Facebook agrees. She said they're now wasting tax dollars and resources trying to continue to punish her.
Mhm.
She's
Exactly.
gonna be punished. She's
Yeah.
gonna, and whatever the punishment is, she will do it. And will pay back. Hopefully, get back in good graces with in terms of the money that was spent. But you're absolutely right. Let's use this as an example of, because Coy, every Wednesday we have Black and Missing in the newsletter, and time again, it doesn't matter if it's in Philadelphia or Chicago or Atlanta or Alabama. All of these people look like our brothers and sisters, and this could have been this young woman.
Yeah.
So let's keep pushing forward and really uplifting the work of the Black and Missing Foundation and others that are trying to do the right thing, to put the right spotlight on our young people that are missing. And it's not always young people, people of all ages. And
Yeah.
and so, I was listening to a news story today. It's crazy. This woman who is a doomsdayer, part of a doomsday cult, she just was found guilty for the murder of her children, as
Mhm.
Mhm.
well as her husband's ex-wife. And it just kind of like just under the radar there, and doing things like this. uh, but with us, it's like, oh, bigger, and you look at what
Right.
but it's not fair. It's not
Right.
fair.
And then black people adding to that. Stop
Yeah,
it.
right,
Stop it.
right. Yeah, to stop it is right. Corey, have you ever had a situation with friends who have, because I mean, they now say that they have a sketch, a psychological profile of people who are lying in order to get attention or something like this. Have you ever been confronted with this with a friend or an acquaintance?
Yeah, I've seen situations like this similar, and I've noticed that it's always a certain age group of young women that are distraught, and most of the times I've seen it have something to do with a relationship, significant other, whoever they were dating, whether they were in a relationship, approaching a relationship, or breaking up out of a relationship. And there's been some type of action to get this person's, not only their attention, but to draw sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I believe that we were looking at with the Carly Russell situation. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all over the place, all over the blogs, that this was done because she was in a relationship with a boyfriend. They broke up, and apparently he had moved on with another young lady, and her and the young lady had an exchange, a conversation that didn't go so great. And I guess this is how she felt like she needed to put the ball back in her court by getting attention and sympathy. I've seen women do things.
But let me ask you
Um,
this. What happened to the days, Jackie, when you would go with your girls, you go out for some drinks and say, that ain't worth it, and let's go key his car or something. And then
we don't have mothers that are strong and wise enough to tell us this, because a lot of mothers are 17 years older than us, 18
yeah,
years older than us, 20 years older than us. We don't have mothers that are a little bit older and wiser. Grandmothers now are starting to break the age gap, or the age group of 30s now. There are grandmothers in their 30s.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
who is teaching a lot of us young women how to be women
And
when
I'm
they're
not
still
saying keying
children?
the car is the answer. I'm just saying from previous experience, and don't
I'm
ask me
just
how
that
I know
probably
this.
feels better. That probably feels better. Not
And
saying to do that, but
you got some answering to do. I understand that, but I'm just saying it's better than a kidnapping
just
situation.
I
take the
mean,
little misdemeanor.
I think across the board, women need to understand,
Yeah.
and we need to teach young women that being in a relationship is not the beginning and
End
of
all.
your life, and the end of a
Uh-huh.
relationship is not the end of your life. And so we have to put it in perspective. Yes, if you are lucky enough to find someone who is your soulmate and there's a connection and you have a lovely relationship, that's great. If that relationship ends, there is still fulfillment out there for you. It does not, everything is not attached to being in a relationship. But for so many of us,
Hmm.
we are taught since we are young girls
Yeah.
that, the perfect family, marriage, children, that it's all what we're supposed to do. And,
Hmm.
it's like I see so many women who are just like, I don't want to be alone. And they're in these relationships that are horrible relationships. Maybe they're not being abused, but they're not happy.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not happy, but they just don't want to let go of, that's being able to say, well, my man,
Right. Right.
Duh.
my man, it's so important. Like, you don't want to go to a concert by yourself. You don't want to go to dinner by yourself. Well, you got friends, you got
Hmm.
family. Lean into that. Stop putting so much. We've just got to stop it, women. We have got to stop making relationships be the foundation, romantic relationships, the foundations of our lives.
You
It
got to
just
have an
is not.
identity.
You
That's
have to
right.
have an identity and know
On
who
your
you
own.
are on your own, or you'll never have a happy relationship in the first
With
place.
yourself or anyone else.
Come on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ugh, don't get me.
We are going to continue our conversation. Jackie Reed is here. I'm glad my sister, the microphone, is here, and we're going to continue talking about trending topics and invite you to join us. These are things that have happened within the last day or so. As we move into trending, Jackie, tell people about what you're doing these days. We all left radio behind, and now you're a major force in podcasting.
Well, yes, I'm doing a lot of things right now. It's so funny. I am an executive director with a media company, AirB Media, which is Pastor Air Bernard's from Christian Cultural Center in New York. It's his new media company. So we are doing a lot of incredible things there. One of the things that he's doing is he's helping Angela Yee open up her daily midday show on the
Nice.
radio over at iHeartRadio with the Shine the Light
Hmm.
segment they do every morning. And so I'm helping to produce that and so many other things there. And then, yes, I have a podcast, two podcasts. I have the Vegan
Two.
Sexy Cool podcast. So please subscribe. And then I have Read This, Read That with Joy Reid. And yes, we have been on hiatus forever. And Joyanne and I talk about once a week about,
Oh,
okay, we have got to bring this podcast back. But there's so much going on in the news.
right.
And in both of our lives, we're so busy, but she is just crazy busy. So we really
Right.
haven't had time. And I've said to her, Joyanne, we need to, okay, we can,
It's
she's like,
time for the Play Cousins to
yeah,
come back together.
we are still talking about it, and we plan to do it. We're talking about doing it as a season, doing a
Hmm.
number of pre-recorded episodes instead of doing it the way that we've done it before. So that's what we're talking about doing. So yes, Vegan Sexy Cool, of course, is my heart of hearts. So
Of
please
course.
follow me on Instagram and all the places where you can find Vegan Sexy Cool. I'm actually going to be at a Vegan Soul Fest coming up in, think of it, Jackie, Baltimore. In August. I want to say it's the weekend of August. Forgive me, 16, 17, 18, whatever that weekend is. I got
Hmm.
so many things going on, but I'll be there in Baltimore. It is going to be huge. And if you love great food, not even vegan food, but just good food and a good time, with music and an outdoor festival, it's 2 days, that Saturday and Sunday in Baltimore, and I will be there.
That is so awesome. A lot of times I look at and I'm thinking the food that you show us, like you will go to a vegan restaurant in New York City. I'm like, where do we find this in our local? But you have really pointed out that, in everybody's city, and especially in the larger cities or college towns or things like that, these restaurants are there. You just have to get out and find them.
You
We
have
don't
to.
all have to be a chef like Coy, but
No, no, there are so many great vegan restaurants, but the best vegan food can be found in your kitchen. It really is easy to make. It's easy to switch something up and turn something vegan. And listen, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to give up my ribs, or oh, I don't want to give up my chicken wings. And it's like I was saying earlier, we as a people have to really be more, if you don't care about animals, right? And animals suffering and all that kind of stuff, maybe that's not your jam. Maybe you don't care about the environment. Don't worry about that. This planet, maybe you don't have kids, you don't have to worry about the future of the environment. But if you care about your body, right,
Yes.
you can reverse. Like, none of us are getting younger. And I think a lot of us feel like, oh, well, it's in my family to have this. Like, chronic ailments, we feel like it's just part of getting older. Well, it's not. Your knees can actually last a lot. Your hips, your back, just all that is inflammation. And the foods that we are eating, the meat, the dairy especially, is hurting your body. You can reverse diabetes, so many other things, cure cancer, so many things by just changing your diet. But we are so stuck to, girl, I'm not giving up my mac and cheese, or girl, I'm not giving up okay. What can I say? It really can make a difference in your life, but we are so stubborn and set in our ways when it comes to so many things. We don't even want to feel better. I mean, what about being able to just, sleep through the night without waking up in the middle, to have a good night's sleep, right?
Yeah.
To be able to, if you got kids or grandkids, to be able to go for a hike or a walk, outside, to be able to do those things, all boils down to what you eat. And the vegan diet, I don't care what you say, is the best way to go. But you got to do it right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get into a situation where it's life or death. And now you have to make all of these changes on top of healing, on top of being stressed. That's for me what did it for me. Not to say that I always ate bad or anything like that. There was a point in time in my life that I did, eat meat maybe 3 times a year at this point, if I do at this point. But I had a situation when I was 19 years old, when I was working at McDonald's. And of course, I'm eating this because that's what I can afford. And I'm here at work. I can get some stuff for free. I got so sick. My hair was falling out. I had a huge knot on my stomach. I had to go back and forth to the doctor to do several different types of tests, x-rays. They were looking down my throat, up my butt. They were looking up and through everything and couldn't find nothing wrong. I went to a holistic healer. She told me exactly what to stop eating. I started eating by my blood type. She said, these things are also causing you problems. You need to cut out dairy. You need to cut out meats, and other things. And I've been eating like that ever since. I tried going back to eating certain meats for a little bit, and immediately my body started reacting. And a lot of people don't realize that some of these reactions that you have is your body's way of coping with an allergic reaction or just an intolerance. All that swelling and stuff like that is your body literally trying to grow around the parts that are hurt. But once you get off of it, and it is a process. I'm not telling anybody to just go cold turkey. You can start by 1 time a week, maybe work your way up to 2 times a week. Even if 3 times a week is your max, do something, because you don't want to be laid up in the hospital with doctors doing all these tests on you, running up bills, and then their diagnosis at the end is, well, I don't know.
Right, because if doctors don't eat that way, they're some of the worst patients. So if they don't eat that way, they're not going to advise you to change the way that you eat. But it's true, Coy, we always wait until something is seriously wrong with our health to make a change. Why not be preventative, right?
Yeah.
Why not just start changing? And Coy, yes, you're right. You can do it over time, but it's so important to change the way that we eat and live. And, we are so quick to go to the discount meat market. The worst food that you can have to get, yes, it may be more expensive to get fruits and vegetables that are organic. Go to a farmer's market. Check out your local farmers and see what they can, buy it seasonally. But if you're not getting organic, all those pesticides and things are toxins and they are poisons. And, people feel like, they'll end up having something like cancer. And it's like, where did that come from? It happens over time.
Mm-hmm.
Not just what you're eating, but the hair products that you use.
Oh my
What I
God.
mean? The air plugs that are in your, we don't pay attention when something is clearly labeled as
Right.
being carcinogenic. We don't pay attention to it. The makeup that we wear, all those things,
Cleaning products.
make cleaning products. They make a difference. And that's why I'm like, they cloned Tyrone. I was sitting there like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
This is what, like, we need to really pay attention
It's
to
in
it.
the chicken.
Yes.
It is though.
It's in the hair. It's in everything. I mean, it was one of
So
the.
let me tell you my last experience. I'm trying to do away with dairy right now, and so I've almond milk for my coffee and things like that. And so I'm trying to wean myself off of coffee, but still, with almond milk. And so I'm thinking I'm doing okay with the almond milk deal. And I came across something on social media that if there are gum products in your whatever your product is, that can kill your liver. I'm like, oh, Jesus God. So I'm
Listen,
You got to do double duty.
You got to do, listen, even as a vegan, I don't just eat everything that's labeled vegan or eat everything that's plant-based. What I leaned into was reading labels. The
right.
milk, the milk that I drink is Elmhurst milk. I drink their cashew
I
milk.
saw that.
It has 3 ingredients in it: cashews, water, and I can't remember what the other ingredient is, but it's just like Elmhurst it was an old dairy farm, I think in
Yeah.
Baltimore, New York,
New
that was,
York or something. Yeah.
that has turned over, and they have some of the, not all, plant-based milk, are created equal, and not
Mhm.
all, like coconut water. People feel like, oh, it's just coconut
Yeah.
water. It has so much added sugar in it unless you get the right ones. You
Yes.
have to,
You have to do your
have
homework.
to read labels. You have to do your homework.
I
It's
was I was standing in Whole Foods the other day and I'm looking, nope, that won't do, then nope, that won't do. And I'm like, why do you have these products in here at Whole Foods? But you just,
Yeah.
like you said, you can't depend upon them. You have to depend upon yourself
Come
to
on, you
get
gotta
it.
Invest
your
in
work.
get a food processor and a blender.
Yes.
There are ways that you can make a lot of this stuff. Sometimes I make my own vegan cheeses.
Yep.
I need to start looking how to make. You can make your own oat milks and almond
You
milks
can
and
make all
cashew
of that.
milks,
They have so many
sunflower milks,
out there. It'll
rice milks.
save you money, and that, because the less processed, the better.
Right.
Even if you're buying it at the grocery store and it's not a fruit or a vegetable or a grain, then it's been processed in some kind of way, and you
That's
want
true.
least processed foods so we can
And
live
So,
long,
so we're
healthy.
talking about living our best lives, and let me make a quick turn here to women who we, from our point of view, watching television are living their best lives, and you recap it every week with "And Just Like That," which is Sex in the City 2.0. How
Yeah.
did you come to do that?
Well, my good friend Nakia Nichelle, who's in Chicago, I don't know what we were talking about. We talk so often about just the business and catching up and just supporting each other.
Hmm.
And we were both talking about the fact that we both loved Sex in the City, and we both Sybil, I watch some of everything on TV.
Yes.
And she does too. And so we actually met in Chicago when I was there covering all the Chicago shows on NBC.
Yeah.
And so we just said, what would be fun if we did a recap, and let's just go live, and we just have fun with it. There's no script, no rhyme or reason. It's just easy, which is why I like it. It's just easy to do, and we love talking about And Just Like That, not only because we were huge Sex in the City fans, but because we put that work in, but then now that there's so much diversity with this cast right
Yes.
now,
Yes.
and that makes it even better to talk about this show and all the goings on, because there are women of color and just a diverse group of people that are a part of it now.
Yeah. And I really like when you take the writers to task for some of the things that they say or do, because they're not being honest with their
No,
characters or with their viewers.
they really aren't. I mean, the investment, if you're a true Sex and the City fan, then Steve is our guy.
Right.
In period, end of conversation.
Hmm.
So for the writers to let what happened to Steve in the way that it did, and then I was mad that people tried to make it like, if you were against Miranda moving on the way that she did, then you're anti-LGBTQAI, and
No.
that's not true.
No.
I don't care who she got with. It's not okay the way that she treated Steve. And we took issue with that, those of us that are real fans. And finally this season, they gave Steve nanosecond of justice when
Right, right.
you have it,
And then
that's
he
what
flipped.
happened, and he apologized. It's
Yeah,
like, what are you
yeah.
doing, dude? Let him have a moment. Like, yeah, but what they have done with Miranda in the first season, I mean, the fans have spoken out. You know, finally, she and Che broke up. For those of you who watch, sorry if I'm spoiling anything, but you know, I'm yes, the writers. I don't know what was happening in that writers' room that they took such a great show with this great cast of characters, and I think they did a decent job with the other women and bringing on the women. I love how they diversified this cast. But
Right.
what they did with Miranda Hobbs is criminal. It's
Yeah.
criminal. You know, and I don't know if they'll have a chance to make it right with the strike that's
I
going
don't know
on.
how they will in this season, especially now, as you say, with the strike and everything. It's going to be interesting how it all comes back together.
Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. Let's talk about were either of you Pee Wee Herman fans or Paul Rubin,
Yes.
the comedian? Okay, all right, okay.
He's the
Well,
reason why I knocked out my front teeth when I was a kid.
What? I'm sorry.
well,
I need that story.
yeah, please. Paul
Yeah.
Rubin's Pee Wee Herman. That was his character. Paul Rubens passed away yesterday.
Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah, who
at
didn't do
70.
that,
So
Dan?
what happened, Coy?
I used to ride my tricycle like how he did, I think, on Pee Wee's Big Top when he stood up on the seat and was like holding the handlebars and stuff like that.
Oh,
So I saw that when I was a kid and I was like, yeah, I can do that too. I was a little stunt double since I was a child. And we lived like on a hill when we lived in Ohio. And I used to just do this, you know, every day. And for whatever reason, this day, my tricycle rolled over a rock and it tripped. And, you know, little kids, when they get surprised, they go, and I did just like that and landed. Right. And I landed just like that. And I can still hear the sound to this day. Oh my gosh. And I was missing 2 front teeth for about 3 years until I turned about 5 or 6.
oh, wow.
So I
Oh
hated
my
taking
goodness.
pictures.
Oh my goodness, that'll learn you, huh? As my
They're
mama
my
used to
baby
say.
teeth, but good God.
Wow. Well, sorry to say he had suffered from cancer for several years, and
Yeah.
he wrote a letter to his fans and friends saying, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this, but you know, I really just wanted to go through this." And unfortunately, he passed away. Not sure what the type of cancer it was that he did pass away of. But I also wanted to talk about in entertainment, Cardi B. Cardi B. She was performing in Las Vegas over the weekend. And apparently, she and her DJ were telling people, spritz her with water. Her DJ was to keep her cool and keep her cool. Well, one of her fans just tossed a container of alcohol on her. And that really ticked Cardi off. And she threw her microphone out into the audience. Well, she did not necessarily hit the woman. It's not clear if she hit the woman who tossed the beverage on her. But someone has filed charges against Cardi for throwing this microphone at her. And so now,
right?
yep,
I
yep.
think that's unfortunate. I didn't
This
realize.
thing is throwing things at people on stage. What is that?
For a concert you paid for.
Right.
I don't get what's going on, and I don't know if people are paying just so they can have a moment capturing something for social media. It just doesn't make sense to pay for something, meaning that you want to see this person and you enjoy their work, but then you're throwing it. It's gotten out of hand, and so I mean, I think that's a good defense on her part, because you just never know. I mean, people have to. This has to be stopped, or I mean, I would have walked off stage if I was her. After I threw the microphone,
Yeah.
I would have walked on stage.
She threw it left-handed too.
I know. I don't know who she hit. I don't know if
She switched hands.
but if she did, I'm not mad at her, because it was a reaction. And if people are out here throwing things, I mean, we all see it. But I think the venues are eventually going to end up in trouble if they don't do something about this. And unfortunately, it means that fans, Monica jumped down in the audience.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's smart. Even if you want to break something up, you're surrounded by security. Let them handle that, because I don't know what's going on with these fans, but maybe they're not fans. Maybe they're just buying a ticket to get in there to have a moment.
And to have a social media moment.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but these venues need to step up.
So this woman, she reported this to the Las Vegas police that she was struck by an item that was thrown from the stage. No arrests or citations have been issued. I hope that the alter. But the thing is, also, is just to take a beat. If somebody throws something at you or hits you, just I know you're caught up in the whole emotion of the song and whatever or
Yeah.
the performance, but just don't react so quickly and so violently. I guess
Well,
is
she
another.
was on Love and Hip Hop for a while, and she's from the Bronx, so
Well, we know, but you can take the girl out of the Bronx, but sometimes you can't take the Bronx, but somebody has to be there to protect her.
right.
That's the thing. Her people she needs to be able to know that she could catch a case. So she
Yeah,
has to, as a celebrity on her level,
yeah,
um,
Right.
figure out how to control that within herself. It's just not smart.
yeah. Not smart
Yeah.
at all.
Even though it's
And
justified, it's not smart.
right, right, exactly. So let us close now with our daily jewel, our daily inspiration. Yogi's jewel. The best accessory that you can wear is confidence.
Mm.
That is a great piece of advice. The best accessory you can wear is confidence. Both you ladies wear that well. I thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining me. Jackie, it's so great to see you and spend a little time with you. Once again, my love to your mom and to the Hall of Famer, and I hope that everything is going well. How can people follow you on social media?
Follow me at Jackie Reed, also at Vegan Sexy
Sexy.
Cool.
Cool.
And if you want to learn how to eat vegan, follow me on my Facebook group. I'll let you in as a private group on 12 months to vegan.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks so much, Jackie. I hope you'll come back sooner rather than later.
Yes, anytime. Thank you
Okay.
for
Thank you,
having
darling.
me.
Coy, have a great week, and you be careful out there too.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, you guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you all again soon. Aloha.
Bye.